One night, I dreamed a dream. As I was walking along the beach with God, across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene I noticed, two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my God. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand and I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why. When I need you most, you would leave me, he whispered. My precious child, I love you and I will never leave you. Never, even during your trials and tests, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. This powerful poem has expressed for many the internal challenge we experience in our relationship with God. And it is with this that I begin my remarks. My children love the song A Million Dreams, and the words often float through my head. Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. What about my dreams, I wonder? Are they not worthy of being fulfilled? And I think it's safe to say that people of all religious backgrounds, including Judaism, have often been chastised for asking questions about their relationship with God. Where do I fit him into my life when all is chaotic? Does he even still remember who I am? And if yes, why doesn't he answer my prayers? Tonight, I will address my recurring life theme, riding life's roller coasters, how to hang on, stay strong, and enjoy the ride. I'm not your average public speaker. I never took speaking classes or even dreamed of doing this as a young child. On the contrary, I'm on the quiet side naturally, and my husband is the family talker. Yet I share my personal story, our family journey, as it is my sincere hope that it will shed light on the struggles so many of us face, and perhaps bring a new perspective on how to cope in our moments of uncertainty. I've been married for over 15 years. I'm a mother of 5, the oldest of 9, an emissary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, blessed memory, to Montana's Big Sky. I'd like to take you back for just a moment and ask you to join me in traveling to Crown Heights, the Chabad Hasidic Haven in Brooklyn, New York. Rabbi Chaim and Rivki Block, my beloved parents who were married in 1983, gave birth to me, their first child, on July 25th, 1984. When I was 6 months old, the Rebbe entrusted my parents to represent him in the greater San Antonio community, where they've now served and created a renaissance of Jewish life since 1985. I attended Gan Gani, the preschool my parents founded. For elementary school, my siblings and I enjoyed studying at EKA, our local Jewish day school. And for high school, I left San Antonio and joined an incredible Chabad high school in Chicago. For post-high school studies, I traveled to Israel and attended Beth Chana Institute in Sfat, northern Israel. On New Year's Day of 2006, I was introduced through a mutual friend to a charismatic, funny, and wise yeshiva student. His name was Chaim Brook, and he hailed from a wonderful Chabad family in New York, where he was raised with his 4 siblings. 3 months later, on March 22nd, 2006, just a few miles from the Riverwalk and the Alamo, Chaim and I were married under the Texas sky. Like all our peers, the next thing on our agenda was to begin building our very own family. And of course, my parents were geared up and excited to become grandparents and welcome what promised to be their first grandchild. Our first year in New York was lots of fun. We enjoyed New York's kosher restaurants, spending time with Chaim's family. We traveled to all over, and we started planning for what would come next. 1 year later, in March of 2007, on the morning after our first anniversary, Chaim and I boarded a flight from Newark to Minneapolis and on to Bozeman, Montana. With my in-laws and a few relatives and a couple of Chaim's friends waving from across the TSA checkpoint, we said goodbye to life as we knew it and embarked on our life's mission to the beautiful Jews of Montana, a place that had no traditional Judaism for over 150 years. Our new Chabad Center was off to a great start as we made remarkable inroads in the community. Jews of all flavors were joining our Shabbat dinners, holiday celebrations, and even Torah classes. They joined either because they were thirsting for something new and traditional, or because they found it amusing that a young Orthodox couple would move to Bozeman and they wanted to know what that was all about. Yet behind the smiles and warmth, behind the day-to-day operations, behind those solidly shut doors, Chaim and I were worrying and agonizing. Why am I not pregnant yet? Is it me? Is it him? Is it both of us? What should we do? And what's with those babies we wanted so much? How many more times shall we buy pregnancy tests only to be heartbroken? Bozeman is like heaven on earth. It's picturesque with the most amazing quality of life, but without precious children on our laps, who will we enjoy it with? We couldn't even find a fertility specialist in our state, so for diagnosis and evaluation, we needed to travel. With the help of the amazing people at Bonei Olam, an organization devoted to Jewish couples struggling with infertility, we were introduced to the finest doctors in the field. And in the spring of 2008, 2 years after our marriage, after undergoing an invasive medical procedure, the doctor said to us, and I quote, "You are not going to have biological children. There is nothing else to do." It was devastating, it was heartbreaking, and we felt truly hopeless. I was 23, Chaim was 26, and no kids? What was Hashem thinking? Why us? And how could life continue? Can our marriage prosper under this harsh reality? We were young, ambitious, and felt like true soulmates, but this had the potential to destroy it all. We felt spiritually confused. One day, we were fully on board with total faith in God, and on other days, we questioned everything. We'd read incredible stories about the power of going to the mikveh, of observing the precious laws of family purity, and the blessings that is to bestow upon all couples, especially those struggling with infertility. Yet Mia and Chaim, a couple at the time who were driving 7 hours each way every month, at times through treacherous winter storms, to use the mikveh in Salt Lake City, Utah, we were told no children. Where's the blessing? Where's God's justice? I tried to find comfort in the fact that the Lubavitcher Rebbe and his Rebbitzin, my cherished role models, didn't merit biological children of their own. And in fact, our patriarchs and matriarchs, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebecca, Jacob and Rachel, all struggled with infertility, but it didn't give me or Chaim long-term comfort or solace, and we were distraught. Yet during the despair, in those untenable moments of sorrow, what Chaim and I discovered together is that there are moments in life that we merit seeing God, and others where we can't see him at all, but have to rely on our faith. Montana is beautiful 24/7, 365 days a year. You should all come for a visit. It's quite a trip, but it's worth it. You can spend Shabbos with us in Bozeman, and you can see the miracles of nature for yourself. And the Talmud teaches, when one gazes at nature, seeing the miracles of creation, when we see the miracles of medicine, which has come so far to help those in need of healing, or even watching a flower bud in your front yard, this is a clear sighting of God. Stand at Niagara Falls, or at our very own Old Faithful in Yellowstone, gaze at the glaciers in Banff, deep in the Canadian Rockies, or the awesomeness of the Grand Canyon. At those moments, one doesn't need to believe in God. At those moments, God is right before your eyes. When we see God, when he's visibly apparent to us, it would be a crime to believe in him, as we're denying his very presence before us. It's when one is experiencing a permanent infertility diagnosis, when one is walking through a pediatric cancer ward, or when looking at the casualties of COVID-19, which has changed our lives in so many ways. So many of us find ourselves confused, feeling hopeless, and even depressed on occasion. It is then we need to pull out something deeper, something essential, our faith, as it is that unshakable faith that will allow us to survive and even thrive. It is faith that will shine light in the very dark tunnel. So when we'd hear trigger words like, "Oh, we're expecting in November," or "Do you have any children yet?" or "Don't worry, it will happen in the right time," it would awaken such raw emotion for us, but also for the countless souls, beautiful couples and individuals who were struggling, feeling alone and sad. And it was in these moments of hopelessness that we turned to each other and we'd say, we've got to pull out our faith card. We have no choice. So going back to the day that we were diagnosed with infertility, as we were leaving the hospital with the horrible news, my father called from Texas and he said to me, "Javi, there must be children in this world that Hashem wants you to care for." And though Chaim and I weren't in a place to internalize his words that day, he planted a seed of hope. And over the next few months, Chaim and I would have many conversations, hundreds of hours of work discussing what our options are in building a family. And we made up our minds that adoption was the path we were going to explore. At the Kinnes HaShlochem, the annual Chabad Rabbis Conference in the fall of 2008, while sitting in a Brooklyn shul, Chaim ran into his old friend, Yassi, from Moscow, Russia. For the first time, Chaim opened up about our awful situation. His friend was visibly shocked, but was comforting, but like most, wasn't sure exactly what to say. And before they parted ways, Chaim asked him matter-of-factly to please think about us if any baby in need of adoption ever comes your way. That night, Chaim attended an evening for the rabbis where they showed an unpublicized video in which the rabbi encourages two women to adopt babies. He called me immediately, sharing with me the amazing, undeniable divine providence that just transpired. This year, when we are lost, searching for a glimmer of light and hope, we merit to see this video, and we knew that adoption was meant for us. But the months dragged on. We looked into adoptions in Israel, Ukraine, the US, but nothing really panned out. We researched from the experts in the field of adoption and learned about all the intricacies involved in the process. It was extremely overwhelming. The legalities and costs seemed unfeasible, and we were simply lost and pretty distressed. On August 28, 2009, a little girl was born in a slum hospital outside of Moscow. A young mother gave birth to her child 7.5 months into her unexpected pregnancy. The baby weighed about 3 pounds, was not in good health, to say the least. Mom was scared and shocked. Her baby was hospitalized for over a month, hooked to a respirator, and underwent several surgeries. This fighting baby miraculously managed to survive the Russian medical care. She still had a long road to full recovery, and the doctors encouraged the mom to take her to America for medical evaluation. This young mom called Chaim's friend in Moscow for guidance. Yes, that same friend who Chaim had spoken to almost a year earlier at the New York conference. As loving souls, Yossi and his amazing wife Luba cared for this mother and her baby, and when mom finally listened to the doctors and took her baby for medical evaluation in the States, they both traveled with her, leaving behind their entire family. During the long flight over and later while visiting the doctors, this young mom decided that she wants to give her baby to an adoptive family. They worked with her, spoke with her about the ramifications of her decision, but she was adamant to have her baby adopted. At that point, Chaim's friend called and said, "Chaim, remember that conversation you had with me last year? Are you still interested in adoption?" And on the brightest morning of our lives, Tuesday, November 10th, over 11 years ago, sitting in a gas station in a small town in New Jersey, we got the call that was almost 4 years in the making. It was like getting a call directly from God. It was the adoption agency. Rabbi Brooke, you and your wife can come now and get your beautiful baby. And we sure did. It was that beautiful morning that Chaya made me and Abba, me a mommy and Chaim and Abba. And the gift of adoption is something that most people can't relate to, as it's an experience like no other. While Chaim and I don't know what it's like to have a biological child, we do know how amazing it is to have an adoptive child. It was on that Tuesday morning that it became crystal clear to us that God is with us, guiding us, loving us, and running the entire show. So when it rains, it pours, and just a few months after Chaya's adoption, we received a call from a rabbi in Hoboken, New Jersey, about another potential adoption. So on Shmini Atzeret, the last day of Sukkot, less than 1 year after Chaya came into our life, our second daughter, Zizi, was born. Zizi was born a few weeks early as well, not as early, but we were in Texas celebrating the holiday when we got a fax, those still existed back then, that said, "It's a girl." And it was our attorney informing us that if we weren't there on time to pick her up, they'd have her transferred to social services. As it was 3-day holiday when electronics are prohibited by Jewish law, it made our communication with the East Coast very strenuous, and our anxiety was sky high. We were grateful to have a few kind Gentiles who were in touch with the hospital on our behalf and informed them that we would have our family there to pick up our baby. Indeed, it was Chaim's younger sister and brother who actually picked Zizi up immediately after the holiday, and we met Zizi for the very first time the next morning at Enterprise Rent-A-Car in Newark Airport. How many parents can say they meet their baby for the first time in the airport? Zizi and Chaya had lots of fun playing together. They cracked each other up in their adjacent cribs. We read books together. We enjoyed swimming lessons, and we frolicked in the outdoors. That is the hallmark of Big Sky Country. And one Sunday morning in the fall of 2011, just after Zizi's first birthday, everything changed. Zizi was sitting in her high chair. Chaim was feeding her breakfast, and suddenly her head dropped and she started experiencing what seemed like an epileptic seizure. My husband screamed on top of his lungs and told me to come quickly. And in pajamas, holding his EC tight, 2-year-old Chai in the back seat, Chaim drove like a New York maniac and got us to the ER in Bozeman within 6 minutes of her seizure. The ER doctor started blood work, CT scans, and all the routine tests you do for a kid who'd some type of neurological episode. We eagerly awaited the results, which all came back inconclusive. Cece's young brain didn't show any of the expected abnormalities associated with epilepsy, and they shrugged it off by saying, some kids never get seizures and they don't come back. But time passed, and it was evident to both me and Chaim that something wasn't right. Cece was slow with her expected milestones. Walking, talking, potty training all took slower than usual. So we schlepped to Billings, our big city, to see a visiting neurologist, and he too was adamant that Cece's developmental delays were all behavioral, not neurological, and that the seizures and her slow development were totally unrelated. But we didn't buy it. And you may ask why? Why not just let her progress at her own pace and just let it go? Here's why. Every day or two, Cece would have a total meltdown. Not the conventional tantrums that all kids have. These would last about an hour and a half. She would black out, she couldn't hear us, and she wasn't consolable, and her crying disrupted our entire family. We knew this wasn't behavioral. Something wasn't right, and we were determined to figure it out. Parenting is hard enough. Every self-help book, every parenting magazine, and most importantly, our deep and wise Jewish traditions all give us so much direction on how to raise children, how to speak to them, interact with them, react to them. But nothing teaches you what to do with the unknown. How are you to help your beloved child when even the experts are clueless? It was so scary. Should we continue searching for medical answers? Is this genetic? Did her biological parents have this too? Should we fly her out of state for secondary consultation? Will insurance cover it? If not, can we pull together the funds needed? A classmate of mine with a special needs child told me of a pediatric neurology center in New Jersey where she had taken her son for an evaluation and she thought they were really good. So in November of 2014, I boarded a flight out of Bozeman with 4-year-old Cece, leaving Chaim behind to hold down the fort, and we headed to Cherry Hill, New Jersey for a 3-day evaluation appointment. The primary neurologist was a remarkable Hungarian doctor who in 2 short days concluded without a shadow of a doubt that Cece isn't sleeping at night, though it might seem like she is, that her brain is unstable, and most importantly, that her meltdown episodes are actually seizures, which are for sure impacting Cece's development. The Talmud teaches that there's no greater joy than the removal of doubt and the advent of clarity. But this clearness was a double-edged sword. Yes, we now have a bit more information, but the challenges were just beginning. We headed back home from New Jersey, and the doctors wanted her to undergo some genetic testing to confirm her form of epilepsy. So indeed, we traveled to Billings again, where she underwent a spinal tap, and that together with a $22,000 genetic test performed to the dismay of the insurance company, confirmed that Cece has a rare genetic disorder called GLUT1 deficiency. It was crystal clear that our dear Cece, this special neshama, the special soul entrusted to us along with our other children, has a disorder that only 500 people worldwide have been diagnosed with. So what is GLUT1? GLUT1 syndrome is a genetic disorder that impairs brain metabolism. Glucose isn't transported properly into the brain, leaving it starving for the energy it needs to grow and function. GLUT1 deficiency causes an array of symptoms. Some signs and symptoms may include seizures, movement disorders, speech and language disorders, and developmental delays. There is no cure for GLUT1. The current standard of care is a ketogenic diet. So we read that and we're like, okay, Cece was already being treated with speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy. So already taking medication for seizures. What is this ketogenic diet and what are we up against? Do we even have the strength to deal with this new reality? Do we have what it takes to care for Cece and give her what she needs while giving our other children what they need? Like a camel that can only carry a load that matches its strength, God doesn't give us any more than we can handle. Yet we wondered, is God placing too much trust in us? I pondered, can I really handle this? How can I parent when all parenting norms are thrown out the window? So this new ketogenic diet is a high-fat, moderate protein, and low-carb diet that causes the body to produce and burn ketones for fuel in the absence of glucose. These ketones can act as an alternative fuel source, and the energy they provide can help alleviate some of the symptoms of GLUT1 and help supply better nourishment for the brain. In simple English, it's a pain in the you-know-what. Zizi can only eat meals we prepare and measure, especially for her each week. Only certain ingredients are allowed. She can never eat out at any restaurant or anyone else's home. And when we travel, and we do often, we have to bring all her food along. Chaim or I travel with her every couple months to Colorado Children's Hospital, where they monitor her progress with lots of blood work, psychoanalysis, and testing galore. So how does one cope when your little cute cuddly toddler is struggling with her health and creating such a burden on the family? The answer is parenting with God. I wouldn't be able to get through these moments if I didn't recognize that Zizi is a gift from God, as each child is. I wouldn't be able to get through the day if I didn't believe that each of my children were meant for me, and that I am 100% capable of giving them everything they need. The good news is that Zizi's diet is working well, and while she has a lifelong of challenges ahead of her, she's developing beautifully as she plays catch up for all the years she wasn't energized properly. So these two kiddos were just a year apart and were a lot to handle, but my dream of having a home full of kids never ceased. Yet in the world of adoption, like in most things in life, you can want all you want, but it doesn't mean it will happen on your timeline. But then it happened. It was the morning after Simchat Torah of 2012, when Chaya was 3, Zizi was 2. We received a call from a fellow that asked if we were looking to adopt another child, and if yes, would we be open to a Black, or to be more exact, a biracial child? Chaim and I deliberated and discussed the ins and outs of raising a Black Orthodox child in Montana, no less, and we decided we were all in. So in April of 2013, just after Passover, we adopted our third child, Menny. Menny's adorable, on the very wild side, sharp as a tack, and he's really hard to keep up with. He cracks us up all the time. He loves school, he loves his dirt bike, and he loves all things sports. But more recently, he's asked us at the dinner table, are there still people in this world who don't like Black people? And it forces us to chat about the tough subjects, the realities of life in a productive and healthy way. It's uniquely interesting because while most Jews aren't racist, many aren't used to seeing Black-looking Chabadniks in shul. It is different. But difference shouldn't scare us. It should be an opportunity to be more embracing, more compassionate, and more open-minded. A few years back, while our daughter Chaya was taking a bath on Martin Luther King Day, she spoke about what she had learned in school. And she then said, Mom, I'm so grateful for Martin Luther King. And I asked her, well, why? And she said, if Martin Luther King didn't have a dream, many wouldn't be able to be my brother. Raising a Black child, especially with today's tense race relations, specifically in the United States, it's a tough balancing act. Menny knows bits and pieces about what's going on, and he's very perceptive. So we explain to him as best as we can to an 8-year-old that sadly, racism still exists in some circles, and it's unacceptable. But at the same time, remind him that the fact that he's adopted by white parents, the fact that he goes to a mostly white school where he's treated like a superstar, and the fact that we've had a Black president for 8 years are all positive signs of the progress that have been made. Yet we're also very careful not to dictate for him what that experience should look like, as we aren't Black and we don't know how it is to be seen that way. It's part of who he is that I hope he could cherish, embrace, and as he gets older, figure out how to relate to it in a way that suits him best. In August of 2016, a lovely 12-year-old girl, Courtney, joined our Gan Israel summer camp. Her mom died tragically when she was 5 years old, and her dad, who did love her, but just couldn't raise her with the stability that each precious child deserves. After spending 2 weeks in her home and loving her time with our family, she didn't want to leave. Though she did head home to Wyoming, in her mind, Bozeman was where she wanted to stay. Chaim and I had adopted 3 babies before Courtney, but a preteen? Unlike babies, they come with a long history of baggage that affects their every day, their every thought, their every emotion. Courtney was placed by God at our doorstep. At our doorstep, we knew that God would have understood if he would have said, sorry, we just can't. We aren't cut out for this. But we knew it was our calling, and we said yes. Courtney's child number 4. She's an amazing, talented, smart, and fun young woman, and she will undoubtedly grow to boundless heights. Does that mean she's always easy? Not in the slightest. Are any girls her age easy? Does she have a lot to repair internally? She'd be the first to say so. But does she have a glowing soul that's on track to do good in the world? You bet. She chose her own Jewish name, Shoshana Yael, as she felt like she's a Shoshana, a rose plucked from amongst the thorns. And like Yael in the book of Judges, she's a warrior fighting for a better life for herself. When adopting Shoshana, it was odd for Chaya. She was not the oldest anymore, and yet she's still our first child. But these issues are addressed and add to the novelty of our family that we've allowed Hashem to create for us. Shoshana had a lot more to sift through than we imagined, but her journey has changed us for the better. From her adoption in 2016 through the school year of 2018, Shoshana attended our local public school while supplementing her Jewish studies with her online tutor. Keeping her close to her new family was the right thing to do and gave her time to blend in with her new parents and siblings. In September of 2018, the beginning of the new school year and her high school year, with the support of her amazing therapist, we sent Shoshana off to a conventional Chabad high school in Florida. But after a few months, it became clear that her unhealthy behavior patterns were a reflection of undeniable deeper wounds that would have been an immense burden on an adult, how much more so on a young growing soul. With the guidance of friends and mentors in March of 2019, we did something radical. We sent Shoshana to a wilderness therapy program in southern Utah, where for 4 months she lived with 7 other girls and a few staff in the desert. No bathrooms, no kitchen, no technology, no clocks, no cabin, no tents, no showers, all natural. You go to sleep when the sun sets and you wake up when the sun rises, and you hike miles and miles a day. It was a nurturing environment, but one that forced Shoshana and the girls in the encampment to look inwards and deal with their raw self and to be able to share with their staff and their peers. It was phenomenal. Initially, she was furious, of course, but she will tell you that although not an easy experience, the time in the wilderness gave her foundational tools that can be used to change the trajectory of her life. After graduating from Wilderness on July 1st, 2019, we transferred her to a girls' therapeutic academy where the focus was equine therapy, working with horses who, like the girls, experienced trauma. Together, the girls and the horses work through their trauma and grow in their healing process. In August of 2020, after 18 months at school in Utah, Shoshana graduated and came home to Bozeman to attend a science-based private high school. She's excelling academically and working tirelessly to use the tools taught to her in therapy to help her grow in her individual journey while being part of a loving family unit. Therapy doesn't fix everything for all eternity. It's not a secret drug, but what it does do is it gives us the foundation to heal our internal wounds in a healthy manner. Shoshana is working hard, as are we, and all of us are excited for her bright future. If these 4 didn't keep us busy enough, 3.5 years ago, Chaim got a call from a woman in Montana, and yes, on August 18th, 2017, we adopted our beloved Chanalea, named for Chaim's mom, who passed away at the young age of 54 back in 2010. She's now 3.5 years old, adorable, rambunctious, and is already giving us a run for our money. When I wake up to my children each morning, I pause and I remember how blessed I am. And I remember that we can't decide what life will bring us. We can only decide how we will respond to what's sent our way. It may be harsh to recognize that we don't control our children's outcomes, but it's also really liberating. We are meant to do the work, persevere through the tiring days and sleepless nights, and after all that, to live life without any expectations for particular results. We're to cherish the work, the growth and progress made within ourselves and with our children, and not allow our selfish parental agendas get in the way of these beautiful moments. Don't misunderstand me. There are enormous hardships we experience almost every day. Each child has their personal needs, and navigating the process and figuring out what they are and what's best suited for them is a full-time job. Do they need attachment therapy, behavioral therapy? Do they need a specialized school or just a special assistance within a regular school? Do they need a psychologist or a psychiatrist? It's all very stressful. All of these unique needs are in addition to the constant stress of operating a Chabad center in a place, the small populace of Jews, which makes getting a minyan, paying the bills, and giving our children a Jewish education really hard. But it's not about the what Hashem places before us, but rather how we're going to respond to it. God is not my personal ATM machine who unloads cash to me just because I punched in what I think are the right code numbers. I wish. Not that God can't, of course he can, but he doesn't want us to be spiritual, physical, or material freeloaders. He wants us to do the heavy lifting, as it makes us better people, better parents, better spouses. He'll give us what we need when we need it. And I get it, why sometimes when we find ourselves in the struggles of life, we can turn our backs on God. I get it. It hurts so much. We simply don't think there's another option, but there is. We can choose to see that it's with God's love, God's care, God's Torah guidance, and how to see each moment as a gift, enabling us to fight on, to live life with joy, enthusiasm, and hope. It's actually even more than faith, it's trust. Trust is a potent formula. When we ask God for blessings of good and place our total trust in him, it has the ability, the spiritual power to actually create that reality. Do I ever question God? Of course I do. Only someone that believes in God can question him. If he didn't exist and he meant nothing to me, I wouldn't bother conversing with him, precisely because I love him, because I'm in awe of him, and because I know he guided us to our 5 miracles. I wonder why the mystery. Why can't it be a bit more straightforward? But my questions and hours of thinking don't take away my faith in him, it strengthens it. I struggle often, but life is full of struggles. Escaping them is not an option. Trust me, I've tried. Overcoming them is possible, but with a lot of inner courage. And I share this all because each of us encounters challenges in our lives. And I can state unequivocally that God is an operator par excellence. And when we are meant to transition from a place of impossibilities to a place of revealed good, it will happen like a blink of an eye. Don't give up. He will not fail you. And I love this quote from Dr. Seuss. Life's too short to wake up with regrets. So love the people who treat you right, forgive the ones who don't, and believe that everything happens for a reason. If you get a chance, take it. If it changes your life, let it. Nobody said it would be easy. They just promised it would be worth it. And I want to leave you with one last little story. Once upon a time, a daughter complained to her father that her life was miserable and she didn't know how she's going to make it. She was tired of fighting and struggling all the time, and it seemed just as one problem was solved, another soon followed. Her father, a chef, took her to the kitchen and he filled 3 pots with water and placed each on a high fire. Once the 3 pots began to boil, he placed potatoes in one pot, eggs in the second, and ground coffee beans in the third. He then let them sit and boil without saying a word. The daughter moaned and groaned impatiently, waiting, wondering what he was doing. After 20 minutes, he turned off all the burners. He took the potatoes out of the pot, placed them in a bowl. He pulled the eggs out, put them in a bowl, and he ladled the coffee out into a cup. He asked, "What do you see?" "Potatoes, eggs, and coffee," she hastily replied. "Look closer," he said. "Touch the potatoes." She did, and noted that they were soft. He then asked her to take an egg and break it. After pulling off the shell, she observed the hard-boiled egg. Finally, he asked her to sip the coffee. Its rich aroma brought a smile to her face. "What does this mean?" she asked. He then explained. The potatoes, the eggs, and the coffee beans had each faced the same adversity, the boiling water. However, each one reacted differently. The potato went in strong, hard, and unrelenting, but in the boiling water, it became soft and weak. The egg was fragile, with a thin outer shell protecting its liquid interior until it was put in the boiling water. Then the inside of the egg became hard. However, the ground coffee beans were unique. After they were exposed to the boiling water, they changed the water and created a delicious beverage. "Which one are you?" he asked his daughter. "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a potato, an egg, or a coffee bean?" I conclude with a heartfelt prayer that all those who are experiencing challenges, be it physical, material, mental, emotional, or spiritual, should merit the inner strength to deal with their journey and merit along with our people the coming of Mashiach now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chavi. That was beautiful. Wow. Lots of food for thought. Your attitude is incredible. Truly, you're lucky. Your children are very lucky. And now
I don't know if you would ask them, but they would agree with you.
All right. Well, kids, that's kids down the line. But your attitude is simply beautiful, and your faith and your determination, truly inspiring. Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to questions. please feel free if you have any questions or comments to put them in the chat. I could see somebody has asked, well, you kind of touched on this, but perhaps you could elaborate. The past year has not been the best year in America as far as America-race relations. Do you prevent many from reading the news? And how do you? And has he had reactions, either positive or negative, both as an Orthodox Jew and a Black child, particularly in Montana, for being famous for being in the bit of Middle America?
Okay. Yes. Listen, that's a very good question. It has been definitely a difficult year. I think in all aspects, and I think race is included, but do I prevent him from reading the news? Well, the good thing is he's only 8. We don't have a TV. He doesn't really read the newspaper. So we have that going for us, but he lives in the world. He goes to public school. He interacts with everyone out there, and he's very smart and very perceptive. And so he does pick up on things. And I think also developmentally, as he's getting older, he does recognize that he is the only Black child in the family. He's one of the only Black kids in the whole school. Bozeman is not a diverse town, not because it's not accepting, it is, but Bozeman is not, it's off the beaten path, right? To get anywhere, it takes a lot of effort. So we don't have a lot of diversity. So I think he's beginning to start to really think about and explore who he is and how he fits in. And he feels very safe and secure in his family and in his Jewish life. But I think he does feel confused a little bit about his skin color because he is different, right? And I think the most important job of me as a parent is not to convince him that everything's fine, not to like downplay it, but to just be open to any discussion, any questions, just be open to talk about all their feelings, because then they feel like they're heard and their feelings matter, and we can explore it further. But so that's kind of how we deal with it. We talk about it a lot. We have a lot of books. We read about it. He expresses himself. He's, dealing with a lot of inner, people don't like me because I'm Black, and that's usually not the case, but it's how he's expressing his feeling other, right? He doesn't fit in, like everybody else in connection to his skin color. So it's just a lot of open conversation, a lot of education, and a lot of, just exploring together. I hope that answered the question. You're muted.
Oops, sorry. I was just saying sorry about that. Just saying that there's some comments here saying thank you for the excellent talk and the absolutely wonderful story. Chazak chazek. And another comment, fantastic talk, so admirable. Thank you. So are there any further questions?
The view is stunning. Yes, Mushki, you can see very
Let's
well
say.
from here. That is actually one of the
Yes, well, I'm going to say that a question that I'm curious about is, you have within your family time, I'm curious, how do you create this, when you talk about creating this beautiful family bond, have you found that there's, there's ways of creating a more cohesive, are there different, I'm just curious as far as,
Yeah, I do think there are ways to do that. You have to be very intentional about it, right? Creating a family environment, even if it's a biological family, if you don't work at it or pay attention to it or do things to foster those connections, they're not going to happen on its own. So very important. I mean, family dinner every single night, no matter what. And around the dinner table, we go around and everyone has to say one thing that they're grateful for that day. So even if you're having a really bad day, there's always something to be grateful for. The other thing that we do as a family is, and I find that is a huge family building connection experience, is we travel. We travel a ton. We do trips together, because when we're home and we run a Chabad house, and everyone is busy with their million things that they have to do. Yes, we focus on dinner time, but it's a hectic life, you know? But when you take the time a couple times a year to go away with just your family, it forces you to just, you know, pay attention to just your family. And there's experiences, there's challenges, there's, you know, you have to do a lot of things together, overcome a lot of things together, work together. And I find that that's a huge bonding experience. And so we definitely take advantage of that, and we travel a ton. People are like, why are you traveling so much? And oh my gosh, you know, wait till you're retired to travel the world. And I'm like, no, I want to do it with my family. Like I this is part of being a family together. So those are the two things that we really, I find, if you're like want to focus on some things, you know, traveling is not always accessible, especially nowadays. But having that family-centered dinner, and really about open conversations, that's really allow your kids to speak and talk and express themselves, and don't try to, like, if something's on, a lot of times kids say things that are super uncomfortable and you just want to run away and hide and not address it, but try to stick it out, be there. You don't have to, a lot of times it's not about answering questions, it's just about being present and listening. So those are like some of the things that we do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Question, it seems that you kind of, I'm sure you must have kind of skipped over lots of boring bits, but it seems like it was relatively easy for you to adopt children. How would you agree or disagree?
Okay, yeah. So obviously, if I gave you the whole saga of each story, we'd be here forever. But I think that I wouldn't say easy. I would say we're blessed with the opportunity to have adopted 5 children. Each of those stories were extremely difficult, stressful, a lot of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster ride. There's been many adoptions that have fallen through in between these stories, and a lot of heartache. So I wouldn't use the word easy, but I do think that we have been blessed with having 5 adopted children. I think also a lot of people are, you know, how did you adopt that many children? And, you know, how does it work? And I tell people, like, the more open you are to the world and to what the world has to offer, the more you get in return. So if, let's say you want to adopt, but you only want like a white, you know, Caucasian male with no special needs and no health issues and no, like, and you're very, very specific in what you want, and you know, then it's going to be hard because you have a very narrow window of opportunity. But if you open up your window and you include so many other, you know, variables, then you have more opportunity. So we have done that. We have opened ourselves up to race and to health and to special needs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's more opportunities.
Beautiful. Thank you. How is it for Shoshana to adapt living in a religious Hasidic lifestyle as a teenager?
I think it's difficult. I mean, I think in the beginning it was very exciting, and she wanted to be part of our family so badly that, you know, I don't even think she realized the ramifications of what she was taking on. But I think through the years, it has definitely been a challenge. We both made mistakes, learned a lot. Our expectations we had to modify our expectations. She had to understand the boundaries of the home, and together we make a system that works for us. But to say that easily you can adapt a whole new lifestyle, I wouldn't say that that's the case. I think it's a big struggle. And I think it's just being open and understanding and talking about the journey and the things that are going on for each of us is an extremely important part of the journey.
Open communication. Yep. With teenagers. There's a question here, which is, having spent a week traveling across communities in Montana as a student rabbi or Rebbitzin, can you share about Jewish life in Montana today?
Yeah, Jewish life in Montana is rocking. We moved here 14 years ago. We were the first Chabad center in the state. And now my sister lives 5 hours away up in Kalispell. She moved 2 years ago. And then 3 years ago, we opened up a center in Missoula as well. So now we have 3 Chabad houses that service Montana. So it's really growing. It's really beautiful. Even this last year, since COVID, Montana has exploded because you live in a rural area. It's a lot easier to live your life and to have a sane life than living in a building in a city, right? So I think it's really growing. It's such a beautiful place to live. We have such a beautiful community. The people who live here, you want to live here. People are not, no one's in Montana by mistake. You don't end up in Montana like by mistake. You have to work really hard to get here. You have to, you know, it's beautiful, but it is gotta, you know, weather that there's a lot of elements like cold and snow, and you know that's very big part of our lives. And so it's a beautiful place to live, a beautiful community. And I think Yiddishkeit wise also, it's small because listen, it's not New York or Florida or California, but it's growing and it's vibrant.
Your kids have other Jewish kids to play with?
Other Jewish kids, yes, but not any other, you know, religious kids. They all go to public school, so they all have friends, and that's really great for their social life, but they don't have kids who are like them specifically, who live their life the way that they do.
Right. Right. A second. Great. Let me see. I think that there was yeah, we're saying thank you. Ellie is telling you thank you that you gave all this love to these children. That's very nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So another question is, what makes it hard to find a child to adopt? Not sure.
Like I said before, like, first of all, it is a process, right? And I think, you know, depending on what, you know, if you're very, very, very specific on what you want and you're very rigid, then it's going to be harder. But if you there are children in this world that need homes, hands down. You know, you can go through the foster care system. You can go through, there's so many ways that you can go about it. Of course it's hard, but there are children in need. And so if it's something that you want to do, which I'm not saying is the right thing for everybody at all, but if it's something that you're interested in and you want to do, it's very doable.
Your attitude is awesome. Love it. That's great. There's another comment coming in, which is, yes, Family Helder is saying, thank you for the inspirational discussion. We have comments. Would you like to, let's see if I can unmute you. Try to unmute you. Let's see. Sorry. Trying to find you. Family.
I think, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very good. Thanks very much. Yes, we were very fortunate to be able to listen to what you had to say, and clearly inspirational family. And that's very important for all of us. Now,
Thank you.
We are currently not Jews, but we're part and parcel now. We're just about to engage in the conversion program.
Wow.
And in view of your comments relating to your son who's now beginning to ask questions about all sorts of issues, partially in relation to race, that could be something that surfaces, and he may feel a little isolated, secluded. I'm sure that there are many other families that you can call upon for support, but we would like you to know that as we progress and as your son progresses, that there may well be reasons for our paths or our sentiments at least to converge. So yes, that he understands that he isn't alone. There are lots of people like him. As you can see, our family, we are a mixed race family. This is my wife here, and all of our children. And this is, yes, so we're all here, and we understand what it means to be, we appreciate what it means to be Hashem's servants and Hashem's children. And I'm sure that as you do, your son will also grow to appreciate that if given the opportunity to do so.
Well, thank you so much. I really hope you guys make it to Bozeman. That would be amazing one day. And where do you live?
We're currently living in England in a town called Nottingham.
Oh, awesome. Well, we love to travel and we hope to make it around the world one day. So definitely, I think it will be such an amazing thing for our paths to cross. I love when my son gets to, he very, very much identifies with seeing other Black people. And he really, really, like, we landed in Florida one night when we went on a trip to Florida, and we landed in the airport. And the first thing he said, he goes, "Whoa, there's so many Black people." And we're like, my husband and I looked at each other, we're like, well, how does that make you feel? And he's like, amazing. Like, he felt so connected. You know how, like, when you land in Israel as a Jew, you feel so connected, and he feels that too. He feels connected as a Jew, but there's another piece of him that he feels different all the time. And when he's in a situation where there's other Black people, he feels so connected. And his favorite singer is, do you know Nissim Black?
Yes, we do. We are familiar with him.
Yeah, well, he loves
person,
him
yeah.
because he's amazing,
Yeah.
and it's just the rhythm works for him, and he's Black and he's Jewish, and it's just like it's his hero. So it's really, really special to be able to have met you guys, and I hope, God willing, I believe our paths will cross one day. It will happen.
Now, I don't. Yes, I mean, it would not surprise me if he experiences some form of dissonance as he begins to explore.
For sure.
But that dissonance doesn't have to be dissonance all the time. It can be consonance. And
Exactly.
our experience within the Jewish community, in fact, we are living in an area where there are hardly any Jews, but during a couple of days ago, we actually spent time in a Jewish community in the United Kingdom, and that was very, very interesting. I mean, even interesting for us, and we could actually say for the first time, as you did, wow, so many Jews, and they're distinct.
So many Jews.
And
Yeah.
we know that they're Jews. We can see them, the way that they're dressed. We can see how they related to each other. And our experiences there were exclusively positive. There was nothing negative that we had to say.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's
And
amazing.
that's not surprising amongst those who are led by Hashem's Spirit. So
Exactly.
all we would like to say is thank you very much for looking after a soul. And if we can in any meaningful way just contribute to his sense of well-being, even just by seeing someone else.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Yeah, and also, and you can be in touch with us. Rabbi Ellie can kind of exchange.
Okay, I'll get absolutely. I would love to get your contact info. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So unless there's some more questions, we're gonna round it off. And a big thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. A very big thank you to Javi for giving us. I think this is something that gave us lots of food for thoughts. Many, as you said, not only for parenting, but for all the different directions that our life takes us. So we thank you very much for that, and I'd like to wish everybody a very happy Chag Shavuot coming up next week. May we all merit to receive the Torah with joy and inwardness.
Amazing.
And so take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. You
Scotty.
guys were delightful, and have a good week and a beautiful Shavuos.